Apple TV Plus is now Apple TV, and Clips is no more. This is MacVoices. MacVoices is supported by Surfshark. Visit surfshark.com/MacVoices or use code MacVoices at checkout to get 4 extra months of Surfshark VPN. This one has generated a bit of talk on the internet, and I'm curious to see how this group feels about it. But Clips, Apple's Clips app, has been discontinued. I have a couple thoughts on it, but I want to hear anybody here that has used Clips or experimented with it and was using it or abandoned it for whatever reason. Brian, did you play with it?
No, I hadn't, and so I guess I don't miss it because I don't never really used it. I guess
okay,
never part of my
fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. Dave?
I did try it, and I actually went on my iPhone. I still have it installed, so I guess once I delete it, well, they said it's still going to be available to download if you'd already downloaded it once. It's going to be gone now if you were to attempt to go try to get it for the first time. Found it very cumbersome. It wasn't very user friendly as far as how to use it. So I pretty much abandoned it and kind of forgot about it until now. So
okay, Marty.
Yeah, a couple of things I'm thinking. I played with Clips a little bit. There was a time where everybody wanted these short form videos easily to upload, and there was an app that I forget what it was that you could do that with, and then Clips came out as sort of, I think, a response to that. And now we've got TikTok where most of the short form videos are going, or you can also do them through YouTube attachments with it. And now we've also got an app on the phone for Adobe Premiere. So you can do video editing on the phone or on the tablet if you want to. So I think Clips never got ground.
I'll also add, I believe Instagram has a Reels app, if I'm not mistaken, that kind of was becoming very popular because that's what Instagram was all about, was these quick Reels, and it actually was a good editor too. And I played around with it. I'm not too much into that, but I use Opus Clips to do stuff for the podcast, but and yeah, YouTube and a lot of the others, that's the big thing now. The getting eyeballs are these shorts, and like Marty doing his shorts for Vision Profiles. Why not everybody else doing that? And so they're pretty popular. But yeah, having something like that, and you kind of had that feeling, Apple was not really doing much good for support on it. That it disappeared from anybody even thinking about it after it was released.
It's not in this particular article, but I know I read it today, and it sort of reflected my thinking on it because I'd played with it a couple times. First of all, it may have been an app ahead of its time because that's what we see on TikTok all the time now, and that's fine. It wouldn't be the first time Apple's done that. But the issue I found with Clips is that in fact, I'm not even sure you could edit. So if I did a clip right here talking to you guys, I couldn't cut the front end or the back end off, or maybe a mistake in the middle. I'd have to retake it and redo it. And so that seems quite a strange omission for a video app of any kind. Because, Marty, you just said Premiere. We have LumaFusion. We have Final Cut on the iPad. So there are a lot of very powerful video editors. So maybe it was way past time for Clips to go, unless they were going to do more. And it just never caught on.
Really, I guess real quickly here too. It was basically project based. You put music to it. You could add photos and other media in here. I'm looking at it now, just so I still have it, but and it wasn't very flexible. You're a Final Cut user. I am as well. Even using iMovie is going to be more practical for this. It was Apple's attempt to have something that was easier on the iPhone. But the iMovie is still supported on the iPhone, and you can do video edits like that too. But it's a little more extra work where someone wanted to have something quickly like this.
So, Dave, I'm glad you said that because I just checked and I still have clips on my phone. I did not know.
Yeah.
So I'll go back and see, but of course, there's no point at this stage. But it's just too bad. It was one of those things that, again, I think it was ahead of its time, and maybe it just didn't have the right mix of features and didn't have an advocate inside Apple to say, "Hey, we need to do this or do that."
I just went back. I still have projects on here that I did. 2019 was the first one I did back in January of 2019. That makes sense. In fact, I remember recording a project when I was sending congratulations to somebody who was leaving the company and retiring. I did it on here and sent that too. I remember that. So yeah, it had some fun little things to it, but it's dated. There's so many other things out there that are much more fresher than this.
Yeah. I just checked. I don't have any old projects, so somewhere either I deleted them or it got cleaned out. But
the last time I did one was in January of 2020. So that's how long last time I even played with this thing.
Barry in the chat room says, "Oh, sorry, Jim. Go ahead."
Well, I was just going to say these are almost like the same story. It's like these big companies have corporate attention deficit disorder, and it's really kind of predictable when it came out that this would happen. I mean, this is a common thing that Apple does a lot. They come out with something and then that's the end of it. They never update it. They never, and then a few years later, it's like, oh, well, goodbye. Especially little software things like this. So, I never even looked at it at the beginning, because I thought, well, this isn't something to even get invested in unless it seems to really take off. Because, what if you did, invest time in learning it and using it and then, it's abandoned. You're way better off dealing with somebody where that's, their main thing, like Luma in this field. They're not going to drop that because then, they could go out of business. But other than that, that's what they do. Right. But these big companies like Google is really famous for this. Yeah. Just throwing things off and then, they all get discontinued. And, that's something with my company that I used to feel bad that like, oh, well, well, what if I go out of business and then, I've left these people that I told them I was going to offer them a solution and then I, abandoned them. But, oh, well, big companies do that all the time. And turns out I had a lot of longevity. Probably not going to be, forever, but, if Google and Apple and, Logitech can't manage to support things for, more than 3-4 years, then I don't have anything to be ashamed of, I don't think.
No, there's a cost associated with some of these things. Right. And if you don't have the user base that can justify that, that's fine. I feel like Apple clips, I guess Final Cut would be the best example, either that or maybe iMovie. But they a lot of times they give you a basic function set and function capabilities, and then if you need the pro level stuff, you go out to a more specialized software vendor. Like the calendar app is terrific and it's very capable, but if you need something a lot more powerful, there are a lot of third-party apps out there, and that seems to be sort of the theme for a number of things that Apple does. And I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with this. I mean, because if this group is any evidence, there weren't a lot of people using clips. It's just, right. It's too bad because, again, if it had come along at a different time and maybe had just a little different feature set, maybe. Barry in the chat room says, I used it a few times. It was fun, but since I don't post that kind of things to social media, I didn't keep using it. It's still on my phone. So he's giving everybody homework for next week. Everyone who still has clips, make a short project to share with the panel.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Barry. I don't have enough homework.
I was going to say, look at the journal app. To me, it seems kind of similar. Maybe not. I mean, they did update it. Like now, it runs on the iPad, I believe. It still doesn't run on the Mac, though, right?
I believe it does now. I thought I saw an
think it does.
update for 26. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it came in 26.
Okay,
It's
so
very recent, though.
maybe maybe not, but that's something that certainly before that, I look at and say, well, what if I invested in putting making a journal, and then Apple pulls the rug out. In fact, I kind of look now like, gee, I better keep things in text files. Like, I kept a diary on my honeymoon in ClarisWorks, and it's like, how do I read that now?
Yeah, I mean, look, we've all been around long enough in the tech world to know that software goes out of date. Software, unfortunately, developers pass on either in retirement or the big pass on, and the software goes away because there was no perpetuation plan, and so you have to scramble and try to get something new or something to replace it. I mean, man, I don't even want to think about the number of video services or video pieces of software and audio pieces of software that have gone away that I used to use. So it's a fact of life. It just seems different for some reason with hardware. I don't quite know why.
Well, I think it's because you've got this investment in the hardware that's tangible, and that they're discontinuing it because we don't want to spend $5 a month on a server, or $100 a month or whatever, right? That's why. They could do that, but some bean counter has been like, yeah, no, screw it. Stop doing that.
And that's a legitimate decision. It's a legitimate business decision.
Well, but I could see, like in the EU, that somebody saying, "Hey, you know what? If you're going to come out with hardware that requires a back end like that, then maybe you need some sort of a, annuity is maybe not the right word, but like maybe you can't just do that. Maybe society is going to say, that's no, you need to have some sort of a plan. You shouldn't be allowed to sell this stuff unless you because it's going to wind up in the landfills.
Brian?
Yeah, I was going to say, it jogged my memory when you mentioned the aspects related to, there's aspects related to the annoyances of losing, the work that you're doing, and you're used to using a certain product. I think it's also things with regards to the muscle memory. You get used to using a certain product or a certain way that you do something. You have a flow. You have it impacts your productivity. Sometimes it's depending if you're have the opportunity, whether it's something like this that Apple is changing and saying, a particular app may not be available, or we were talking about earlier with the hardware was it from Logitech? And, you're going to have to change the way you might have done something before. And change is hard, the human condition doesn't like change.
Yeah.
Well, and I think, Chuck's asking if the hardware is different. Imagine it's the Logitech. People are basically modifying their houses to, add this to their house, right?
Yeah.
Well, houses are, assets that are, decades or centuries, right? So that's kind of, if you have something that, well, somebody decides I'm going to flick a switch and all of a sudden physical things in your house don't work. That's kind of sucks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but you know
I mean,
what?
the flip side is I wouldn't buy something like that in the first place because I don't trust these companies. I wouldn't trust it until maybe I can tell that they're making a lot of money. So but you don't buy something like this when it comes out because you know that there's not you don't know what the commitment is.
You don't know what the commitment is. But listen, now I'll flip it around. Because I'm involved in a home improvement project here, and I wanted to use the same thing I'd used, I guess, 5 years ago, and expand it a little bit. Well, guess what? They don't make it anymore.
Not available. Yeah.
They've changed the model, they've changed the way it connects together, they've changed everything, and so I either have to stop here and start there, or I just have to ignore the whole thing and I even went to eBay and tried to find some of the old hardware, and guess what? That it just isn't any. And
But
so
you have some of that hardware already in your house, and that didn't stop working, right?
that did not stop working. No, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. So but it happens everywhere. And look, part of it is some engineer just comes up with a better design, or and I'm not going to say obsolescence because in the case I'm thinking of, it's not anything that would break. It's just that, somebody changed the design. So now I can't, the old hardware works with the old hardware. The new hardware works with the new hardware, and never the twain shall meet. So it's life. Ever get the feeling your online life isn't quite as private as it should be? Between trackers, data brokers, and sketchy Wi-Fi, it's easy to lose control of who's watching what you do online. That's why you need a VPN. No, that's not one of those three-letter agencies. It stands for Virtual Private Network, a way to protect prying eyes from knowing where and who you are and what you do online. And that is why you need a Surfshark VPN. Surfshark keeps your connection secure by encrypting everything you send or receive, whether you're at home, in a coffee shop, or on hotel Wi-Fi. Two things that are very important to me when picking a VPN. First is that Surfshark doesn't keep logs. That means there are no records that can be hacked or compromised. They just don't exist, and that protects my privacy. Second is that wherever I go and whatever device I'm on, I am protected by Surfshark's VPN. One account for all my devices makes it easy to remain safe and secure. Surfshark also has other ways of protecting you, like Surfshark Alternative ID. It creates a brand new online identity for you with a unique email address and persona. It's like having your very own doppelganger surf for you. And there's more, but for now, I want you to protect your privacy, reclaim your digital freedom, and make the internet work for you, not against you. Go to surfshark.com/MacVoices or use code MacVoices at checkout to get 4 extra months of Surfshark VPN. That's surfshark.com/MacVoices or the code MacVoices for 4 extra months of protection, privacy, and peace of mind online. Thanks to Surfshark for supporting MacVoices. All right, well, let's talk about another change that Apple has made, and that is that Apple TV Plus is no more as a service. The service name, it is now Apple TV. Good, bad, confusing?
Very confusing.
Very confusing.
I think it's crazy how Apple's doing this. You have a streaming player, an Apple TV. You have an app that's Apple TV, and now you want to name your streaming service Apple TV. Where do you define all three of these? I mean, are they part of the package? I guess so. The Apple TV app is an aggregator, so it aggregates other streaming services that participate with it. Not all of them do. And I find it convenient to be able to go to there and be able to get to whatever and it remembers what you've watched. Like I was watching things on Peacock. Peacock participates, so that's there. But now you're not going to. I think it was a double-edged sword here. Yeah, they had the Apple TV app and all what I just said, but then the Apple TV Plus. Yeah, you had to. I was like, oh yeah, it's on Apple TV Plus, because then you had to go to that app. Are they going to still segregate it in the Apple TV app to know that that's the streaming service and other things are not? Because that's how it identified it. It would say Apple TV Plus or Apple TV. I don't know. It's crazy confusing.
I think
Marty?
somehow people will muddle through.
Yeah, they will. But I just still think it's crazy confusing.
Marty?
I was kind of hoping they would change the name to Apple TV Lisa, or Apple TV Ultra or Apple TV Pro Max. I just don't get it. Is there something that Plus had that was that the paid version of it? If you wanted to pony up, if you don't pony up, you don't get anything. I don't understand why take that designator away from it. But well, in the end, I don't think it's worth a hill of beans in a lot of ways. I mean, I like the service.
And funny you say Lisa before you get to Brian. Webb and I were talking about old Apple Macs and products. He told me he owned an Apple Lisa, probably one of the very few that owned an Apple Lisa.
Brian?
Yeah, I'm actually going to talk for both sides. I think in general, Apple's naming convention sometimes could be kind of goofy, and I think this one I can see how it can be confusing. Having the same Apple TV name for, the software, the service, and the hardware. But and I'm not a big fan. I think I've mentioned a couple years back on the show about the aspect regarding the naming of like Max, MAX. Are you talking about a chip? Are you talking about a size of phone? Are you talking about if you verbally say it like Max, MAX sounds like MACS also. So I mean, their naming convention is kind of silly and that type of thing. But on the other side, completely, when I'm talking with friends and talking about shows that I watch on what was previously known as Apple TV Plus. It's just like, hey, where can I find that show? Oh, it's on Apple. So that's more or less how, when I be talking to friends and recommending a show, oh yeah, it's on Apple. So the naming convention, I don't think for the most people is going to be that different.
Norbert, are you going to be watching Apple TV on your Apple TV or on Apple TV on your Apple iPhone?
Watching Apple TV on my Apple TV app on my Apple TV, but on the iPhone it's just called TV. So go figure that. But I don't think it's going to be that big of a difference or that big of a deal breaker for Apple, because I know when I'm talking about people, talking about shows on Apple TV, we don't say Apple. I don't say Apple TV Plus. I'm not saying, hey, did you watch the latest episode of whatever show on Apple TV Plus? Apple TV, and people kind of know. And that's just kind of the nature of the game. I think in streaming services where we had HBO that became HBO Go, that became HBO Max, that became Max, that is back to HBO Max. I mean, that's just how things go, and people just kind of go with the flow and they realize where things are going to go. So I don't have an issue with it. It would be nice if they were able to change the name of the box itself to something else, maybe. And maybe
They
that's
say
the
they
direction
have.
the box itself?
Yeah,
The
it's the
actual-
Apple TV 4K. That's the name of it.
Oh,
Eddie Q said that today. It's not the Apple TV. It's the Apple TV 4K. Hey, we renamed it years ago. Didn't you notice?
True,
Yeah.
but changing it to something completely different. Apple TV Stick maybe, or maybe something else that they're going to do in the future. So, in the long run, I don't think
Too
it's going to be a game breaker, but I do think that it is for the lay people. For us in our little group, we kind of understand what we're talking about. But when you're trying to tell someone in the family member, where do I watch that? Well, you watch it on the Apple TV. Does that mean that the app or what here? But for us in our little group, I don't think it's going to be that big of a difference. But I do believe that they should change the name of the hardware itself to something more significant than Apple TV 4K.
and look, we could be, we all have a tendency to look at things, take a snapshot today, look at things right now, and then next week they change something. And it's like, oh, that's why they did that. So I still would be kind of surprised if they did, but I think maybe it was one of those things where they felt a need to differentiate the box from the service at the time. Now I'm wondering if the service is a bigger deal than the box, and therefore, and to I think Brian was the one that said it. It's on Apple, or it's on Apple TV. Now, Barry in the chat room said that he heard that he saw that, excuse me, the comments he heard was that no one actually used the plus when referring to the paid streaming service.
Yeah.
But he heard it quite a bit, and I concur with that. You know, I heard it among my tech friends or my Apple friends, but for the rest of the world, it's on Apple or Apple TV. You know, so
isn't Disney Plus? And I don't think anybody says that. You know, oh, I'm going to go watch The Mandalorian on Disney Plus. No,
actually, they do say that.
They actually do say Disney Plus a lot. Yeah,
yeah.
I hear that more often than Apple TV.
Absolutely.
People in the real world.
Yeah, Disney Plus is pretty popular. Yeah.
In fact,
I just hear Disney.
You might, Jim, you might not hear about it because you live in a pineapple under the sea.
And I think
they ought to change the device to Apple TV 24, 25, or 26.
Well, now we're at 26.
All of those numbers, because we never know when we're going to get a new one.
Yeah, that's true.
Tomorrow.
Release them for a while.
Tomorrow.
Or maybe.
I mean, the streaming world in general is very fascinating. I mean, Disney already announced that they're already shutting down the Disney Channel in other countries right now, which eventually that's going to happen. MTV's Paramount Global is shutting down all their music channels now because their channels, they don't want to deal with it anymore. They want everything put on that Paramount Plus app. So I think I think Apple's move is probably pretty consistent to what the competitors are doing. Really, think about it.
The one thing I know is that, in fact, tomorrow, Charlotte, Henry, and I are releasing a new episode of TV Plus Talk.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to decide: do we rename it to TV Talk? Well, that's going to change it, and just like a lot of us, you know, we're very careful about using the word Apple in any of our projects because Apple doesn't like that very much. So, you know, and I think I got away with MacVoices because at the time there was Macworld and Mac Addict and Mac User, and you know, it wasn't quite the same thing. But now it's a different world, and Apple's a different company.
Yeah, but with your show, Chuck, you're doing TV Plus Talk.
Yeah, I just thought the same thing.
Yeah,
it's not TV Plus; it's TV Plus Talk. Yeah,
I doubt we'll bother to change it, but you know, it's just the idea that everything changes. I don't think this is a bad thing. I think it's one of those that for a little while it's going to echo around the echo chamber, and that's going to be it. And then we'll all just say it's on Apple TV.
It's done. Done echoing.
Yeah.
I think you should change this show to Voices.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks. Yeah.
At some point, there's going to be a white van that comes in front of Chuck's house with men coming out to take him away. So, well, that's the day it changes.
Oh.
I've already got those coming on a regular basis.
I thought Chuck was sending the van to my house.
Yeah.
The man might go to Marty's with all the podcasts he does. So.
Yeah, but Marty, you don't infringe anywhere, do you?
No, he got caught.
No, I had a issue with a logo that I used that had the shape of the apple in it, and Apple shut me down for, well, they didn't shut me down, but they would not. I couldn't put in new shows for about 6 or 7 weeks because it was a big kerfluffle on their part to recognize that I had changed the logo to something that was not infringing anything on it. And I was very apologetic and very nice and I understand. I've learned my lesson, et cetera, et cetera. Now, will you please put my damn show back on? And it was a matter of finding the right person who pushed it to the right person, and then it finally got put back on. So,
well, that's good. Well, we're glad you got it back and that you didn't end up in jail somewhere.
Yeah, right. Just a copyright strike.
Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, Consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you Mac Voices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.